You're listening to Real Conversations, where every week we take a peek at the favorite movies of fascinating people. Real Conversations is hosted by Brian Coley, the founder of Art Within and Real. Today, Brian sits down with Pam Younker, a community leader who enjoys her job in community development for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and serves on the National Civic Leaders Council for the Chief of Staff and Secretary of the Air Force.
So, Pam, thank you so much for being with me today.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
Well, good. Well, we always dive into people's movies and just tell the folks out there what's on your wonderful top 10 list. So just share what the movies are on your top 10. Okay,
that would be Argo, Dead Man Walking, Top Gun, Dirty Dancing, The King's Speech, Princess Diaries, Blind Side, Miss Congeniality, The Guardian, and Galaxy Quest.
So when I looked at your films, one of the things that just hit me was just how many folks are supporting other people or rescuing or saving other people. And so you think about from Luann Tui and The Blind Side sort of, coming and rescuing Michael, to The Guardian, which is all about saving lives, right, to The King's Speech, where he's got this guy who's supporting him and helping him overcome his speech impediment, to Dead Men Walking, to helping Sean Penn's character, the nun helping him and kind of rescuing him and supporting him. Even to Julie Andrews in Princess Diaries, sort of being a support person for her. And then Argo, them going and rescuing people. And then even in Galaxy Quest, it's rescuing people. So tell me about this whole issue of rescuing and kind of saving and supporting that seems to show up in your top 10.
Well, I guess that's always been part of my life. My dad, United States Marine, my mother, very dedicated to our community and our church. And they were always in leadership, and they were always helping people. So for me, it's about helping people and giving them some hope, and also being the mentor to the mentee, to be able to maybe not even say something that matters, but having them see something in me that matters. So when you look at these movies, do you kind of identify with that support character, whether it's the Julie Andrews character or the mentor character like Kevin Costner in The Guardian? Do you see yourself as sort of the mentor or the mentoree in these movies? I see myself as the mentor, definitely. And I guess the older I get, the more I see that. The more I see the need for that for younger people. I know with my job, I work for Children's Healthcare, and in trying to help young ladies as they enter the career field, helping them see what they can do and where they can plug in and how they can make a difference. Because to me, the main thing is making a difference. There's two things about how I like to view my life, and that number one is with respect, to show respect to everyone regardless of their age or what they do, socioeconomic level. But then the other thing is to do something that matters. And you can definitely see that in your films, especially with a character like Leanne Tui. Which character, as you look at your top 10, do you identify with most? I identify the most with Kevin Costner in The Guardian. Oh, okay. So tell me about that. In Kevin Costner's character, he's intimidating. So I think I can sometimes be that. But I also think he's learned a lot with all that he's been through. Some really bad, some good. But what he does is he takes what he has been through and uses it to help the younger person. And in the end, when he doesn't live to the end of the movie, but what he's done is he's invested so much in it that it mattered. What he did was it mattered. And that was something someone asked me one time in an interview, what would I want on my tombstone? And all I would want is she cared. So basically for the Kevin Costner character, just his investment in the younger lives and to make it so important that they learn everything the very, very best they can. Because if it's worth doing with excellence. And does that kind of feel the same for the Princess Diaries? Sort of that same sense of unpolished girl who's now being chosen to be a princess? Yes, I think so. That's having that attitude of being able to help. I do think part of that isn't always a little intimidating because you are put in charge and you've been put in a responsible position. And I think being in a position of responsibility brings a lot of requirements on ourselves that we have to be able to invest in others because of the responsibility placed in us.
So, when you look at the King's Speech, I'm assuming you see yourself as the support character in that, the character who helps him learn how to speak?
Yes, I do. And I see he really had some obstacles to get through to help the king, to be able to help him do what he did. But he held his line. He made sure he knew exactly what he believed. He knew exactly what he was teaching. And then he just pushed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you do at Children's Health Care and how that might fit into what you just described.
I do community development. And in doing that, I go into the community and talk about children's health care. I talk about all we do. I talk about the opportunities that there are for children to be taken care of. The fact that we take care of every child, regardless of the parent's ability to pay. The fact that we are ranked nationally in 8 different specialty categories. I want parents to know this. I want parents to know that when you have to make a choice for your child, you want to make a choice and take them to children's health care. Because when you go into a children's health care facility, you have a 100% chance of getting a pediatric specialist, and you don't get that in an adult facility. So my job with going into the community is to educate people, from organizations, when I speak to organizations, to individual parents.
That's great. And so you kind of see yourself as this person who's coming along and supporting children's health care, or really giving people the vision of how to help children and give them the proper environment for health care.
That's right. That's right. My background is not in health care. I actually was vice president of an engineering construction company before I joined Children's Health Care.
Wow.
Children's Health Care asked me to come on board because they needed someone who knew the community. And it was so refreshing to come into a company to be able to use the reputation already established. So all I needed to do was learn about what I needed to say out in the community. And the first day I was on the job, I asked my boss, should I carry tissues with me wherever I go? He said, no, a towel. And that's really the case, because people have a children's story. Children's Health Care I don't have to work on their reputation. We have the best reputation there is to take care of children. So I just get to tell the story.
Yeah. And I know you help a lot in the community with the military.
I do.
Tell me about your passion there. You said your father was in the military, so just speak to why that's so strong in you.
Well, my daddy being a Marine, I think that patriotism and passion for the military was instilled in me at a very, very young age. So in the Cobb Chamber of Commerce, there's a program called Honorary Commanders. That program matches military and civilians for a year. And in that year, we teach the military about what the civilians do, but we teach civilians about every branch of the military. We go on a trip to see the Army, to see the Navy, to the Marine Corps graduation. We get to do a lot of different things, an Air Force trip. By doing that for a year, you've educated our population, because less than half of 1% of our population now serves in the military. So if we don't, as civilians, learn about our military, the gap will get even bigger and bigger, and we won't know about what our military does. It's really, really important. In doing that, the Honorary Commanders program, I chaired that program for 3 years. And while I was doing that, the 22nd Air Force, which encompasses Dobbins Air Reserve Base here in Marietta, in doing that, I met several people, and they asked if they could nominate me for a national position.
Wow.
So currently, I serve on the Chief of Staff of the Air Force's Civic Leaders Council. Wow. I'm one of about 25 people that we meet at least twice a year with Air Force leadership to learn more about what the Air Force is doing, so we can be the mouthpiece in the community. We can be the ones that tell the story to the general public, so they can continue to support our military, because we're in a wonderful place in Marietta, Georgia, because we do support our military, but not every location has that heart for our military, and it's just really important to teach our population about that.
It's good. So I see Top Gun on your
Yes,
on your list.
Of course.
So tell me, which one of these films is the most connected to your personal story?
I would have to say, oh, goodness. It's between Dead Man Walking and Argo.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Dead Man Walking, there was the guy who it's about had no hope. He'd done some horrible things. But the nun in this story, she talked about how she could, she told him that he was loved, basically, and he was cared about, and she showed him exactly about what God's forgiveness and redemption is about. And that, to me, is really important, because we need to tell that story to everybody. It's not just our story. It's a story that impacts others. The other story, Argo, because they went in there and rescued these people, but equipped them to be able to get out. They had to learn to tell the story to get these people out. So they didn't just go in and bring an airplane and say, you're going to get on it. They had to actually create the story to bring them out. So for me, that's the thing in that movie, was being able to invest in those people, to teach them, to bring them to where they could do the very best they could do and get themselves out of a really bad situation. Wow. So those would be my top two.
So to play that back for you, what I'm hearing is that your life seems to be about really telling a story really well, whether it's telling the story of children's health care or telling the story of what's going on in the military and making people know sort of what that looks like. And yet you see that same thing with Argo, where they have to know how to really be prepared and act out the story,
right,
and show the story, in order to get these people out and save them. In one of your films, it says they don't look the part, they don't act the part, and they don't want the part. I think it may have been Miss Congeniality, and it was sort of this undercover, they're having to go undercover. Argo is the same way. Miss Congeniality, she's going undercover. Galaxy Quest, they're actually actors who then get thrust into real roles. So when you think about that, what does that make you think as far as this idea of storytelling, or this idea of having to play a part?
Well, I was having that conversation with someone last week and telling them that they needed to learn to tell their story. And that, I think, is how we can convince people and show them we care, number one. But after that, help them to be able to tell their story, because each one of our stories is different. When we are thrust into some situations and places that we don't want to be sometimes. But the thing is, how do we do when we are thrust in those situations? Do we rise to the occasion? Can we be the cream on top of the milk, or do we sink to the bottom? And I think as time goes on in living our lives, we learn that we have to do those things. We have to learn what it takes to get to the top.
So tell me, one of the things I also noticed was kind of this theme of an unpolished girl becoming a woman. So they're kind of clumsy, kind of, young. You see that with Princess Diaries. You see that with Miss Congeniality, Dirty Dancing. They're kind of these girls who, at the beginning of the movie, really are clumsy in a way and not as polished. And then they become these women who kick butt or rule or find who they are. Is that kind of something that is a part of your story?
I think so. I'm from the mountains of North Georgia.
Okay.
And I was the first person in my family to go to college. And I think that looking at that, maybe that is part of my story. My mother was the valedictorian of her class in high school, but she chose to get married and not take a college scholarship. So when I was in college, I prayed that I would not find someone to marry till I got my degree, because I was so afraid I would not get my college degree. But in watching my mother not only did she, when Daddy was in the Marine Corps, she worked as a clerk and became the bookkeeper of a dime store. But after that, she came back home after Daddy got out of the Marine Corps, and she decided she was a lifetime learner, is what I call her. So she started studying to become a nurse. Then she got a call from someone in the postal system, and she took the civil service exam. And then she became a postmaster.
Wow.
During all this time, too, she played the piano. Nobody at the church played the organ, so she decided to learn. She played the organ. We didn't have a youth choir, and she wanted my brother and me to be able to participate in a youth choir. So she started the youth choir. So whatever it took, my mother did. And I watched her. She went back to college when I was actually in high school, but it was too far to drive. She was working full-time. She never was able to do that. And so now she's had a stroke 11 years ago, which took away her ability to do a lot of these things. But she had a drive like you would not believe. And I think between my